The NCAA has been screwing players forever. I've been fighting for this for the last 9 years. I have been supportive on what the NCAA should have been doing for the last 20 years. There are players, there are kids that, yes, they're getting full scholarships, but they can't afford to go out and eat. And there are teams that are making money off their name, jersey sales. Why shouldn't these players get a piece of that? And it's been a big problem, as we've seen Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush is still not respected by the Heisman Committee. Why? Because he obviously took money under the table to help his family out. To me, this is what the NCAA should have been doing forever. And again, if you are your own name and you are bringing in people to come and watch you play, stadiums that sell out 60,000, 65,000, why should you get a piece of it? Now with this lawsuit and an opportunity for some of these players to get money that didn't make money in the 2016 time, this is good for those players because there are players that are not playing professional sports anymore. They're done. So they didn't make enough money playing college football, and they didn't make any money playing college football, and now they went to the pros, and they probably didn't have much of a pro career. As we know, the average NFL player, if you're not drafted in the first 4 rounds, are playing no more than 2 to 3 years. So the fact is, the NCAA needs to find a way to protect and give these players what they deserve. Their names stand for something. And again, I believe the NCAA. Look at Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel was thrown to the wolves all those years that he was over there playing for Texas A&M. Yeah, he was a star quarterback that didn't show up to practices. But guess what? His name meant something. As we all heard Nick Saban come out and say he's the best quarterback he's ever played against. And that says a lot about all the great quarterbacks he's played against and championships that he's won. So I just think this is great for the players. It's great for the players. Now, obviously, the small schools, there's a lot of questions to that. There are smaller schools that are not bringing in as much money, and it's not going to drive players to want to go play there. Why? Because obviously they're not a selling point. Ohio State's a selling point. Alabama, Georgia, the big schools, the SEC schools, the Pac-12 schools, the Big Ten schools. Those are obviously the schools you want to play for, not these small alliance schools like Wyoming that we have guys like Josh Allen come from and nobody gives a crap about. But those are the guys, and those are the quarterbacks that come out of college football and blow up in the NFL. So I think it's good. I also think that the NIL and college need to figure out how this could level out where it makes sense, where these players aren't bringing in too much money. Why do they even want to go play professional football? They could just go make as much as they can, college football, college basketball, and stay there for 4 years. Yes, it helps the NCAA, but does it help the NBA? Does it help the growth of some of these NBA youth and some of these, by the way, franchises they're bringing to the NBA, like Vegas or even Seattle that they want to bring in? If those superstar young players don't want to come and play for those teams, they'll say, you know what, I got another 2 years of eligibility. I can make more money doing this than going to the NBA or the NFL and playing for this crappy team. I think that could hurt the NFL or any of the professional sports. That, I think, is going to be a problem moving forward if they don't figure this out.
I actually had this conversation the other day when it got passed with a couple other athletes that obviously we were before this time. But what you guys fail to forget, if you are a college athlete, you still get paid because you get a scholarship check. You get money every month. Not obviously to the extent of this, but you get a scholarship check. So you're getting a physical check every month if you're a scholarship athlete. And it just depends on what your amount of your athletic scholarship is. And then there's other things that we get paid for, like if you work a camp, if you do these things. Like there were ways to get paid in college, just not in this avenue. So I always want to preface people like, it wasn't like we weren't getting paid. It was just not to the extent of what it is right now. What I would also like to know, too, is, okay, how much percentage does the SEC get more than the Big Ten? It said 20.5 for each school. Is there a rollover? Do you have to use it every year? Like, there's a lot of stuff that I don't really know after reading it and trying to understand it.
I think it's for 1 year, but the biggest schools are going to have enough athletic programs to be able to distribute that.
Like, I always give up the booty. No, but okay, so that's my point. So if you get a smaller school And then my buddy goes, okay, so in the contrary, so not these Power 5 schools, but some of these smaller schools, if they're getting that and now can offer a kid more money, is that going to change things? And where you can also still make NIL on top of it, but it's like, oh, I can pay this player directly. Maybe I can see him off of what school he thought he was going to go to, because we're going to give him 50 grand more or 100,000 more, because now you can directly pay them. It'll be interesting to see in what capacity this does affect some schools, and other schools it's not really. Like for us, I mean, we got football players making $2-3 million, and so we got volleyball players making almost $1 million. So here, I just know it because I'm a part of it. Seeing my son and kind of what the things that they do on his level is kind of different as well. But I just want to see how it changes, not necessarily a dynamic, but how some decisions I think will be made, because I literally say, like, now we're not making decisions for our children for their education.
Right.
100% when they go to college. Now we're making business decisions.
You know what, though, Joba? What I learned is, especially as someone who had really good grades for a long time like I did, and, I didn't have connections when I got out of college. But if I was in this era and I was an average player on a winning team, I would have gotten a small NIL deal.
Yeah, for sure.
But think about what I would have done. I would have made connections in different industries doing that NIL deal. And I could have possibly set myself up with some of those connections to take me somewhere in life. And I think that's kind of what a lot of people are missing with this NIL stuff, now that it's going to be standardized. Think about how big those college football teams are and how few of those guys go to the NFL. Like 95% of them to 99% of them are not going to the NFL on most of these teams. Except for Georgia, of course. But this is going to be a killing thing that we saw forever, that these guys would play and they'd get nothing after they played. Now they have connections. They have a little business experience. You could always go back and take classes and get more degrees. I know someone who has like 7 degrees. It's for their fun. It's not they just wanted to get more degrees. You can keep going and getting degrees. You don't have to do it by the time you turn 22 years old. And I think that's a big deal. I do disagree with the scholarship thing. And this is something, Errol, I'm so excited to talk about this, because this is one of my longtime arguments. I don't think I've ever shared it with you. I hate the argument that scholarship is how you get paid in college. Because think about this. The baseball player who helps win the championship, that's bringing all this added value to the school, gets the same free scholarship as the 7th midfielder on the girls' lacrosse team that gets a free ride to the school as well. That does not bring that.
No,
extra
my whole
value.
point was that we still were getting money.
Sort of, but you're not. But you're getting ripped off for your work. You're getting that same deal as someone who's bringing no value to the school, and they're making all that money. And that's why I'm so happy that it's changed. But even bigger thing is now these guys that aren't the stars can actually set themselves up after school. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, but still, at the end of the day, you're still not paying the 7th midfielder in lacrosse. Like, let's just be serious.
Well, I was exaggerating, but you know what I mean. Not a star player and not a sport that draws in the school, they still get a free ride.
It just depends on what conference, because each conference is different.
Well, I think that what's going to happen is the conferences are going to get realigned, Errol and Joba, because of this money thing. And just economically, you're going to see the schools rise to the top. I hope there's a middle class. I don't think there will be if you don't have some revenue sharing, which I hope they do. But it's going to be a lot of haves and have-nots, and you're going to have one really great division of football, and you're going to have a lot of teams that are either going to be over or forced down.
I will say this, and I know a lot of people are going to probably have their own arguments to this and what some of these athletes should be making, or if they should even be getting the money that they're getting. And I understand what Job is saying, that they already were getting checks and they were already getting scholarships. Here's the thing. I look at it as what I believe these schools are bringing in. If you're going to a ball game and you're bringing in tens of millions of dollars through sponsors and corporate advertisements, these players should get a piece of it. It's their names out there. It's their names on the back of the jerseys. And then everybody says, like Nick Saban says, wait a second, some schools don't have their names on the back of the jerseys. Well, that's your problem. They're out there putting their bodies on the line, and they could go paralyzed. They could be brain dead. They're out there. They could hurt their knee, and they could be they can never play professional football or basketball ever again, as we've seen this before in the NBA. There are quite a few players that come to the NBA and never have much of a career because they hurt themselves in their early careers in college basketball. So this has been going on in college sports forever, and these players are really not getting anything. And everybody says, well, they're getting a college education. Let's talk about college education. It's great to get a bachelor degree. Now you're looking at, you need a master's degree to even get a good job out there if you're not going to school. That's why a lot of these ex-athletes, they're going to sales. They're selling cars or they're selling mortgages and stuff like that because they're putting their name out there. They're selling it with their name. What do you think these teams, these colleges are doing? They're selling their names. Why shouldn't these college players make money off their names? Just like professional teams. Why? You look at Peyton Manning. Do you think the Indianapolis Colts would have meant anything until Peyton Manning went over there? They were a horrible organization going nowhere. Then they added Peyton Manning, then Marvin Harrison, then Reggie Wayne. Then they put Clark there, Dallas Clark there. They built a whole defense around their superstar player. And why were people selling out games? Why were people going to watch the Indianapolis Colts play? Peyton Manning. So that's why Peyton Manning, that's why the quarterbacks get the most money. They're going to get the credit when they're winning, and they're going to be attacked when they're losing. It's horrible the way the NCAA has not really stood behind some of these youngsters. And Nick Saban, why he walked away, Dabo Swinney, his big ass mouth coming out and throwing them under the gun and running them over with his car, telling everybody that they shouldn't be making the money. Why? Because you want to make the money? You're making $12 million a year while these players are putting their bodies on the line as you recruit them. Why do you get all the money, buddy? Why does the school get all the money? I think it's absolutely pathetic. These kids don't even finish their college educations. They go right to the NFL and NBA or any of these schools because most of these kids come from nothing. They come from poor families, bad parts of the world where you need to work your ass off to get over the top. Remember when Williamson came out of Duke and everybody said, why don't you go play another year in college basketball with R.J. Barrett and that team? You can win a championship. You know why? Because he comes from a place in Florida where his family was living in a little barn, like a little house. These guys need the money. Their families need the money. And that's why I think that college football, college basketball, college hockey, college lacrosse, college soccer, whatever college sport should absolutely give these players the money that they're putting their names on those jerseys and they're selling tickets because of those guys being there. I think it's pathetic, and the NCAA should be ashamed of themselves for the last 25 years not doing it. As we've seen, remember the movie The Program? Remember that movie?
What a great movie.
Remember that
movie, Latimer, the best character ever.
Yeah.
He's got only underwear on and like 120-pound dumbbells, taking the juice and going, no problem, doing curls.
It's been going on in sports forever. If you think these guys weren't getting money under the table, and remember the FBI was, searching the NCAA college basketball and coaches, doing it under the table. What was it, 3-4 years ago? Me and Speedy were talking on the show when we were doing our show. It's been, to me, I think college sports has been the biggest bull-crapping organization, thievery organization. I don't want to say it. I want to use bad words. I'm not going to do it because they have stolen these kids, manhood. Some of these kids will never play professional sports. They're college-born players that could be making tens of millions, tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars if they never step foot on a professional field where they can set their families up and their own families up for the future. And they couldn't do it because the NCAA are grubbers, thieves, and pieces of garbage.
It's crazy what the landscape has changed drastically, and it's really hard on coaches now. Coaches have to come up with money, and from my understanding, the schools now will pay players directly, and they can still get NIL money. With that being said, baseball now is going to have like 34 full scholarships, so where they only had 11.7 for the longest time, they now have 34 full scholarships, so every player could get a full ride technically, but the roster is smaller, 34. I go back and forth with players getting paid. I didn't get paid. I wish I would have, but at the same time, you can see there's thousands of kids in the portal right now, and it makes coaching so much more difficult because if the kid has 12 innings on the year, he can just say, I'm out. And now you have to basically redo your entire roster every single year. And it's really hard on the coaches because their jobs are on the line every single year. So you really have just a finite time to try and get some players to buy into your program. And really, it's free agency every year. I mean, it truly is like the Wild Wild West. I don't know how I feel about it right now, but I am happy that the players are getting paid because, as you said, sometimes you can have a career-ending injury in college. And 10 years ago, 12 years ago, that meant you're done and you were basically just going to school to earn a degree.